it's me again, Josephine. Welcome back, or just welcome to my channel. And today I'm going to be making cinnamon rolls. It's a little bit of a different video because this isn't my recipe. I'll be linking the recipe I use in the description below. Usually I use a pre-made dough when I'm making cinnamon rolls, but today I want to try and make it from scratch. It's been snowing outside today in Berlin, and it's just made me feel like something comforting and cozy. Of course, I will be adding my own flavour in the form of an orange, which I think will just help cut through some of the richness of the cinnamon roll and just add a nice fragrant taste to it. So I'm really excited to get started. Don't forget to like, comment and subscribe, and let's get going. So, for the filling, you're going to need 2 cups of plant-based milk, a teaspoon of salt, half a cup of butter, a teaspoon of yeast, a 1/4 cup of sugar, 5½ cups of flour, and I'm going to add my own little flavour to this through the zest of 1 orange. First, you want to add your vegan butter into a bowl. Make sure it's melted, along with your room temperature plant-based milk, and then I add in the sugar. And the recipe calls to mix these in together first, so give it a good stir so that all of that is combined and the sugar is at least partially dissolved before you want to sprinkle in your yeast. In the recipe it just said to sprinkle it in. I have given it a bit of a mix in afterwards just so that it's combined and it's touching the sugar so it can activate, and then you want to leave this to rest for 1 minute in a warm place. While it was resting, I decided to take the opportunity to grease the baking tray I was going to use. This baking tray was actually a bit bigger than needed, so if you have a smaller one that would probably work and your cinnamon rolls would be all squished together, but it still worked out just fine. So I'm just using some vegan butter, spreading that across all the corners just to make sure that the cinnamon rolls don't stick, and it should look nice and greased like that, and it's ready to go. I also took the opportunity at this point to zest my orange, because I'll be adding the zest to the dough just to add the fragrance in. My zester is kind of annoying, but I managed to scrape out quite a bit of zest, as you can see, and then I spent a good amount of time just trying to get as much from the outside of the grater off as well, and eventually I got enough that I was happy with. I then stirred that into my rested yeast mixture, which looks like this, and that's just so that it permeates the whole dough before I started adding in 5 cups of flour. So the recipe says to add in 5 cups of flour initially and leave ½ a cup for the end for dusting on the table and adjusting if necessary. So here I am adding 5 cups of flour before adding in my salt, and then the recipe calls to just combine these ingredients. So it's not like bread. You do not want to knead the dough. You just want to make sure it's all incorporated. So the recipe says to use a spoon. I became impatient and decided to use my hands, but I am not kneading the dough. You just want it combined before leaving it in a place to rest for an hour. So I cover it and then left it to rest for an hour to double in size. I have prepared a wine bottle by just removing the labels, cleaning it down, and this is what I'm going to use as a rolling pin. So there's a little life hack if you don't have a rolling pin. For the filling, I've just prepared some butter and left that out for the fridge to soften, and mixed my cinnamon and sugar together, which I will spread across the top. So once the dough has doubled in size, you just want to put that on a floured surface, depending on how sort of dry or wet your dough is. Mine was pretty okay. and then you want to lightly knead the dough. So only 2 or 3 minutes of kneading, just so you can get it all combined and ready to start rolling. I press it into a circle, push it down, and begin rolling into a rectangle. You want the rectangle to be about 1 centimetre thick, so keep flipping and rolling, as you can see I'm doing here, until you have a long rectangular shape. It doesn't have to be perfect, we can even it out with a knife. As you can see, I just chop the edges, all 4 corners, just to make sure it's a little bit more sharp, which will make the rolling part a bit easier. And you can bake these bits afterwards and they're delicious. So it should look like this in the end. I then take my vegan butter and I spread that all over the pastry, creating quite a thick layer, reaching all 4 corners as well, as you can see. And then I sprinkle on my cinnamon sugar mixture until we've got a nice even layer of that as well across all the dough. And then you can start rolling. I like to roll lengthways, and you just want to tuck it in, roll it to the end, pinch the edges together so that it's sealed, and put that sealed part on the bottom before chopping off the ends, which you can also bake. And then I just chop it in half, then half again, and each of those in half again to get 8 equal pieces. And you'll have your lovely cinnamon rolls with lots of layers, as you can see. Don't they look beautiful? Like tiny little snails. So I then put them in the baking tray before covering and resting again in a warm place for 30 minutes before baking. During this time I begin to make the glaze, so I'm using about 1/4 of the orange juice. This is a made-up recipe for the glaze, as well as some icing sugar. And as you can see, as soon as I squeeze the juice in, the icing sugar completely disappears. So I added a bit more icing sugar and orange juice until I got a nice consistency that was thick, as you can see there. And while I waited for everything to rise, of course, don't let that orange go to waste. Little post-meal prep snack. And then once you've finished your orange, your cinnamon rolls should be ready to bake. So I pop those in the oven at 180 degrees Celsius for about 30 minutes. And as you can see, they are lovely and golden brown. And you want to leave those to cool till they're sort of warm. Okay, so the cinnamon rolls have cooled. So I'm going to add some of the glaze I just made. I'm going to just give that a nice little stir again and glaze each one generously with the glaze. Ooh, that was quite a lot. And once you finish glazing, you'll have delicious cinnamon rolls that are an absolute delight. So, I'm going to give this a try. It's not as gooey as I imagine cinnamon rolls to be usually, but let's see what it tastes like. Oh, it's nice and warm. The base is quite gooey, which is good. Okay, that is delicious. The orange is literally perfect. Like, the fragrance it adds, it's not too heavy. This is perfect for breakfast with a coffee. I highly recommend. Thanks for watching. Come back. Bye.